Hello, welcome. My name is Daniel Warren Hill of Alchemical Records, and I'm very excited to be joined here tonight with Washington, D.C. singer songwriter Elle Mitchell, who has just released her latest EP, The End of My Beginning. The 5-song EP contains the title track as well as Hold On to Neverland in response to the tragic school shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. A tribute to the countless victims of school shootings across the country, with all of the proceeds from the song going to the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation. Her previous releases have garnered attention from several media outlets, including Guitar Girl Magazine, The Hype Magazine, Prelude Press. You can learn more about Elle and find links to her socials on her website at lmitchellmusic.com. Welcome. How are you, Elle?
I'm doing great, Daniel. How's your day been going?
So far, so good. These are always like my favorite things, though. I love music. I love hanging out with artists. I love being at shows. And so this is the thing that invigorates me and gets me back to working again tomorrow morning, you know?
Yeah, of course, you gotta find the joy.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, like, how do you find joy? Tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourself before we dive into the new EP.
Yeah. So, music has always been my form of joy, my outlet, and form of creative expression. And ever since I was a little girl, my family really saw that in me and saw that I was always humming or singing a tune or making up little melodies in my head. And they kind of fostered this attitude that in me that you can really follow your passions and you can find joy in what ignites you. And so that I found joy in music, and ever since then have been really finding joy in it since.
This is not your first release, but it is your first full length album. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what brought you from just writing music to producing and releasing your own singles and now here for the full length?
Yeah. So I like growing up, I was always writing songs more informally. But when I started high school, I went away to boarding school. And that's actually where I am now. I'm a senior at boarding school. And so I'm in my dorm room. And going away kind of really opened up this new emotional space for me. And I was able to tap into my creativity in a way I never had been before. And I tried to kind of explore my passion for songwriting using the resources that my school had. But I realized over time that in order to really foster the full extent of my passions, I would need to take some time away. So I took a gap year between junior and senior year to kind of find my spark as a creative songwriter.
Awesome. Well, if you have any questions for Elle, you're welcome to drop them into the chat, and I'll ask them throughout the evening. If you'd like to stay in touch with Elle or just kind of see what she's up to most recently, you can find her on Instagram at lmitchellmusic.com, and I will go ahead and just share that with everybody here. Let's see. So I know that, like, I know that you, like many of us, you hear the news about the Uvalde school shooting, and it just is a heartbreaking, tragic event. I think that artists, somehow kind of are journalists in the way of capturing current times through music. What was that experience like for you, trying to take this situation and turn it into something beautiful or meaningful for yourself and others?
Yeah. When I heard the news initially, my first response was just shock, utter shock. And I think growing up, I've seen a lot of these events happen over the course of my lifetime. School shootings happen so often, and it's like staggering how much we are kind of normalized. Um, and I wanted to capture this emotion of feeling like these people have lost their innocence and we need to take action in a way that would connect with people in on an emotional level, and really just using music as a medium to communicate that message.
So you released Hold On to Neverland on July 29th.
Mhm.
How long or what was the process like from going from the idea or, into putting this in production in time to release in a meaningful way around the event?
Yeah, I I think after the event and the tragic shooting, I kind of knew I wanted to do something, but it took time for me to figure out how that was going to be most effective. And especially communicating this message in a song, you have to be considerate and be careful about what you're communicating. I think as songwriters, you're storytellers, and it's important what the narrative is that you're trying to shape. So, um, I worked with my songwriting mentors, my collaborators, and was able to kind of figure out the story I wanted to tell. And originally, when my co-writer and I, Joseph, when we sat down to write this, we knew we wanted to write a song about kind of this idea of the thing that's probably most tragic, aside from the loss of life, is the loss of innocence, of communities, of families, of children. And that idea of wanting to preserve that and share that message of how drastic it can be when so much innocence is taken away. And that idea was really the impetus as well for the EP, because at the same time I was kind of going through this transition and almost on the precipice of being 18 and turning 18. And that marked a really pivotal kind of time in my life when I'm for everyone. I think turning 18, becoming an adult, saying goodbye to childhood is a very, monumental time in one's life. And kind of akin to this idea of loss of innocence, you are emerging in society. And so I wanted to kind of use Hold On to Neverland as the driving force for the EP, and it really became that, more than just like a way to spread awareness about gun violence and school shootings. I think it was able to serve as so many things.
I'd love to go ahead and have a listen, and then if we could talk a little bit about what the impact, maybe has been since you've released it. I'd love to share more of that story.
Yeah.
All right, this is Hold On to Neverland from Elle Mitchell.
There once was a girl who believed in the world and all of the wonder of change. But she was only 10 years old when everything turned scary and strange. I still remember the day in September, the day when her strong heart turned cold. But if I could go back in time and talk to her, I know what I'd say. What I'd say. Hold on to Neverland. There's time for all your plans. Forget all I dream of a world where there's nothing to fear, and everyone's safe and they're free. Let's all come together and become what we're meant to be.
Elle, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of lyrical content. It really felt like you and Joseph, if your collaborator, your songwriter, really came up with a lot of perspectives, kind of like trying to envision what it was like to be the individuals at the event. Maybe just like trying to speak to our voice nationally, addressing future generations and having control over, our responsibility. There was a lot really going on there at a very short period of time.
Yeah, I think that the song, in a way, tries to encompass these various perspectives, and I think that's the best way to tackle such a prevalent issue such as this, that impacts so many people. And so we wanted to tie the idea of gun violence awareness and the loss of innocence that arises from that to a larger metaphor. And as we were sitting down to write the song, Joseph and I were thinking, because we were going to Disney. Disney was our first inspiration. And looking to Disney for inspiration, I said to him, what movie used to be my favorite movie as a kid is Peter Pan. And Peter Pan has this image, this symbol of Neverland where the kids never grow up. And so from there, we're like, hold on to Neverland. That is such a perfect image to capture this feeling of holding on to the innocence, the magic of childhood, and wanting to preserve that. And that is the message we wanted to take and impart in this song, especially given kind of the weight of the issue that it stands by. So, yeah.
So you decided to have the proceeds for this track benefit the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation,
Yes.
Certainly named after another tragic event. How did you kind of come to the decision that this was the right organization to have the proceeds for Hold On to Neverland go toward?
Yeah. So I did a lot of research to figure out what is the best organization that really kind of aligns with the mission that I'm trying to convey, or the message I'm trying to convey. And Sandy Hook Promise was founded by family members of children who were lost in the Sandy Hook shooting several years ago. And they have a multifaceted approach to try and end gun violence. That's their mission. They want to end gun violence, and they have kind of a educational aspect to it. They have a preventative aspect to it, and they also have a kind of more response aspect to it. So they try and tackle the issue of gun violence, which is such a huge issue, which is political and legal, and it's also social, and you have to kind of come at it from all these different angles. And so they work with schools, they work with local and state governments, they work with national organizations, and they try to really further this mission of raising awareness for gun violence, raising awareness for the impact of gun violence and how it impacts not just the children who are lost, but the children and all the people who are lost, but it's also the mental health aspect of it, that the trauma that comes from this, that arises from these tragedies. And so I think in deciding to pick an organization that was so effective and trying to prevent this from so many angles, I felt like Sandy Hook Promise was the best.
You had mentioned before we listened to the track, about some of the impact. Has there been? Have you gotten some responses in terms of people listening to the track who've gone through the experience? Are you getting feedback from fans about relating to the experience? What are some things happening in response to the track?
I've had a few people who've really connected on a personal level, but by and large, I think people really connect to songs like these that have a message that goes beyond just a personal and intrapersonal level. Songs that really tackle issues like this have a lot more um, range in terms of who they can reach, but it's also people really, they connect to the pain of it and the trauma of it and the loss of it. And I think I wanted to reach as many people as possible. And I think that was the intention of grounding it in a metaphor that was disconnected from all the structural components of and the political components. So kind of tying this message to the Neverland metaphor really grounded it in something that was emotional and relatable. And I think that's what people connected with.
And certainly, I think pulling from experiences from childhood certainly brings around the familiarity, and I think that it's a great metaphor for the for the innocence that you pointed out was lost.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in particular about this track or in the production or styling that kind of stood out differently to you from these other tracks?
Yeah, I think that this song, especially in terms of production, we wanted to make it have a more haunting feel. Um, so in the beginning, you have the humming, which is a notable aspect of it, but also kind of that is in front of very simplistic production, very simple piano. There's some chimes there. But very very simplistic production, and that was intentional. And then there's this undertone of the haunting kind of harmonic vocals that are there that are they're kind of bass that ground you in this feeling of like unsettling, like there's something off. There's something beautiful but haunting about the way it sounds. And so you're kind of pulled into this feeling, and that's very intentional. So that I think was one of the key production elements that we really wanted to focus on in the track.
So we're going to hear the title track of the EP, which is "The End of My Beginnings." Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of talk a little bit about what that means to you, and is it just like a transition for you, a transition for in writing, or for your fans? Are you taking people on a journey? What's the kind of the focus there?
Yeah, I think that this EP is definitely a journey, and it is emblematic of my personal journey, both as a person, as a thinker, and as a songwriter and artist, but also I think resembles this journey of people who are growing up and have to learn these lessons and kind of really find themselves in at such a quick pace. It's kind of like this very like stark transition. You're like, "Oh, I'm a child and now I guess I'm an adult." And it's yeah, you're not really any different, right? Cuz deep down you're the same person. But I think that idea really like that existentialism of growing up was really what drove me to be like, "Oh, I'm turning 18 and I don't know who I want to be or what I want to do, and that's scary and I feel like I'm alone in that." And those feelings were very much what grounded the writing of the EP, especially the title track.
Oh, did you work with the same studio, the same producers, things like that for all of the tracks on the album, or did you kind of go to who you felt was going to help bring those different songs together?
Yeah, so I worked with the same producers and same co-writers. That my co-writer, and he also served as the co-producer. His name is Joseph Ataya, and the other producer was named Toft Willingham, and they're based in LA. And they both, I think, having those two as my sounding board really helped ground my vision of the CP. And when I had this vision, They were very much supportive. They were really like on board and, ready to jump in and tackle it with me. And that having them was, what got me through it, what made me want to do it. And yeah, I'm very grateful to them.
So we'll check out the title track for The End of My Beginning. Is there anything that we need to know about this song going into it?
Yeah, sure. So this song was born in a moment of frustration. I was sitting in the studio and I was talking to Toft and Joseph, and they were saying, "Oh, you're about to turn 18. Isn't that exciting? You have the whole world at your feet." And I'm like, "No, what if I have nothing planned?" And so that line, which you'll hear in the song, really drove that idea of being scared and uncertain for the future. But I think the message of the song is, and as you'll hear in a second, is this idea that uncertainty doesn't have to be a bad thing, and it's inevitable, and everyone experiences it, and just learning to live with that discomfort. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Thanks for setting that up. Looking forward to listening.
Everyone is telling me
right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, we just listened to The End of My Beginning by singer-songwriter Elle Mitchell. I'm here with Elle in the studio to talk about the inspiration behind the song as well as other songs from her latest EP, The End of My Beginning, including Hold On to Neverland, which we listened to earlier in response to the shooting earlier this year at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. Now, Elle, there's a lot of weight, of course, to a song like Hold On to Neverland, but I still get the sense that there's a lot of that transition of the, like you mentioned earlier, in that kind of that search for innocence and maintaining innocence. I definitely still hear that reflected in this track as well. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what it was like to maybe maintain that message in the different environments of the different songs?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, I think this EP really is a journey of self-discovery and of kind of introspection. And it's, I think the end of my beginning is that silver thread that ties everything together. Um, from the sadness of and the weight of Hold On to Neverland to the lightness of Reverie and the, the excitement of the great unknown. I think that this song really is the bridge between all those things. And um, I think maintaining that sense of innocence, that you were saying, um, I think that was really driven by this idea to kind of maintain a sense of hope and wonder, and that like luster is really again that silver thread that you hear in the end of my beginning, that you also hear in the Hold On to Neverland. And in part that's, I mean, production wise, in part that's due to the we chose to make a musical decision that was to double the vocals, and that really grounded the tracks all in this sense of continuity. They all have the same vocal style, they're all sung in the same way, and they have this sense of just like, wonder, luster, and kind of spaciness. And that I think contributes to that feeling of innocence, that there's so much left to explore and this sense of curiosity. And, I think that style of writing was very much kicked off by the process of writing Hold On to Neverland. And then as we wrote the successive tracks, as we wrote the other songs in the EP, we wanted to maintain that.
It seems like maybe whereas the end of my beginning is kind of like I wish I could see into the future, the great unknown is a little bit about the joy of the mystery.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because every one of those songs looks at like different facets of reality and of looking at past, present, and future. And Hold On to Neverland is holding on to the past. Um, the great unknown is looking to the future. And in the same way, the end of my beginning is kind of wanting to be kind of in both worlds at the same time. There's an excitement to being, uh, an adult, and but also wanting to be a kid, and have the innocence and have the just magic of it. And so, yeah, there's kind of bridging time. There's this idea of like trans-temporal existence that's like imparted in this EP. There's no singular time. It's not grounded in a specific memory or story or relationship. No, this EP is grounded in the idea that time is fluid.
It certainly is one of the long-term struggles of adulting, like figuring out when you're too old for things and too young for things.
Yeah. Yes.
So you are or identify as a Washington D.C. area artist. So of course we love talking to Washington D.C. area artists as part of our publication. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to you to be someone from Washington D.C. and how the local like music scene kind of affects your creative modes or creativity in general?
Yeah, I think DC is the center, really is the center or the focal point of America. in some ways, just like in terms of history, in terms of maybe not like, you know, commerce or culture, but it's still so important. And I think there's a sense of like sophistication that comes with that. And so I think the music scene in DC is great. And I think that that's really what it's grounded in. Um, but, you know, I think there's definitely room to explore and room to expand and grow the music scene in DC as well. I think that there's definitely some possibilities for that.
Are there any particular things that stand out, like resources or infrastructure that you like kind of wish were more present inside of the region?
Yeah, I think studios, um, especially within the DC like metropolitan area, but then also just like kind of spaces for artists to convene, and coffee houses, places like pubs, places that people can, you know, go to and see artists. And those are typically places that ground a music scene. And those places tend to not really in large quantities exist in DC versus in like New York or LA.
Perhaps as well, maybe not as much accessibility for younger artists today.
Yeah.
I know that as a teen, I was almost forced to reserve the local community centers and set up PAs and concerts that way until I was 21.
Yeah, no, there's oh, sorry. I
That's
got
okay.
frozen. Yeah, I think that definitely being a young artist is really hard. There's very little accessibility for that. In terms of trying to build an audience, trying to find live venues to perform at. But I think that, maybe that's something that we look for in the future, is finding ways for young artists to emerge. And maybe that's something I'm hoping to help with, in terms of trying to grow that aspect of the music scene.
Well, speaking of, just this whole EP is all of this journey, and also like kind of the discovery of some things that you want to experience in life and how music is going to play a part in that. Did going through this process, did it reveal what kind of your hope for music, and did it broaden what your career trajectory might be, as if you, in comparison to if you were only focusing on a career choice versus incorporating music into your life?
I think making this EP helped me really appreciate that I really want music to be a part of my life. And whether that's being an artist and continuing to follow down that path, whether that's supporting other artists, I think that remains to be seen. But I think writing this EP, creating this EP, being in this creative process made me realize that this is something I want to do for the rest of my life, and be creative and have that ground my sense of artistic expression.
Is it too soon to ask what's on the horizon?
Well, being a senior in high school, I'm kind of in this process of figuring out really what that future holds. So in the end of my beginning, it really is, it's here. And I think right now I'm in the process of applying to college, and figuring out how music is going to play a role in my college life. And, I think that that's been a huge consideration for me, is how I can explore my passion for music within college, within like the new areas that I choose to explore. And so I guess that's what lies on the horizon, is figuring all those questions out.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Elle. I don't have any additional questions, and I certainly hope that this time that we've had to be able to spend with you helps bring a lot more attention to this and the other tracks that are available on the EP. The Great Unknown, Reverie, The End of My Beginning, Between the Lines, and of course, Hold On to Neverland. Do you have a favorite? Are you allowed to pick a favorite now that it's all over with?
I think I love them all, of course. I mean, they're I'm so proud of what they've each become. Definitely the end of my beginning. I think like that's just my favorite because it's the entire EP. It has everything in it that the other songs have. So
Well, awesome. We can. I want to share. We did have. Let's see. We had JC Jedrick had covered your release of "Hold On to Neverland," so I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the track or in the chat for folks to check out. And then we'd love to be able to highlight it. We did add the end of my beginnings to our Alchemical Records multi-genre Spotify playlist. So you can go over to the Spotify playlist and check that out. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with our readers before we wrap?
no, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much for hosting me tonight. And I hope that you all found some joy tonight. Starting off our interview, we talked about joy. And I hope that you all can find some joy in music anywhere. It doesn't have to be my music, it can be any type of music, because music is what brings a lot of people joy. So
I imagine you'd even encourage people to make their own.
yeah, really, like find your own ways of exploring the music world and write your own music. Allow that journey to take you, because it has, it's an incredible journey. That creative process is amazing. And yeah, so take a listen to the end of my beginning when you have a moment. The full EP is out, and I'm so excited to finally have it out in the world and finally have everyone able to listen to it.
Thank you. It's certainly worth listening to all the way through. I hope we've encouraged a few more listeners to go check it out. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time. I put some ways in the chat to stay in touch with Elle on her website at lmitchellmusic.com or on Instagram at lmitchellmusic. And then, of course, alchemicalrecords.com or via the upcoming physical in-print subscription to Alchemical Records magazine later next month at alchemicalrecordsmagazine.com. I will see you next time. Thank you for joining us, Elle.
Thank you. Bye, Daniel.